and I will send or tweet out the link. This is Thunder, by the way.
Oh,
He needs attention.
Oh, so cute.
All right. And I will send or tweet out the link. This is Thunder, by the way.
get out.
All right.
Did I miss something?
Now. I'm glad you got on. You told me like 60% chance you couldn't make it on at 6:30, Julie.
Well, I can't get my life together.
Who among us? We stand a relatable queen.
Yeah.
You know what? I would hate if someone said I have my shit together. Like, let's throw that person off.
I don't trust him. No trust.
Yes.
You're missing something. If you think your shit is together, you're just not looking hard enough. And I can't trust you. That's just
I love
how
that
operate.
while I'm watching this, I'm so distracted. I was complaining to Nancy that I can't get Vyvanse, my ADHD meds, because they raised the price and fucked with my insurance. Excuse my language. Let me start this with an F-bomb.
Hey, let's get this done.
I'm like
I love it.
watching this, and I'm like, oh look, like Ulysses S. Grant is getting semi-erect. Sorry, I'm not. I haven't even opened my wine yet. I'm just so stressed out all the time.
Well, why don't we start that? I tweeted out the link. We're live. We've already had Ulysses S. Grant semi-erect. So, I mean,
it's a cyborg fight.
That's a party.
Who wouldn't be?
Wine? Ulysses S. Grant half erected, semi-erected. Sorry, wine. I honestly,
having some. Is this champagne? No, it's sparkling wine. This is for Britney, who is now a free.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Out of her conservatory.
I'm down with that. We explained the epilogue, right? This is the party podcast.
Oh yeah, by the way, we're
not the serious panel.
And we're gonna go through because Ethan is cooler than all of us because he's actually at the nightclub right now.
Brittany.
I'm currently working the door.
He's working the door. So I mean, this is the epilogue. The epilogue, which is after office hours.
Mm-hmm.
But what Julie and I love about this, and we're going to go through and introduce everyone, and we have a bunch of topics we can talk about, is that we get so excited by class. We get excited by our students. We get excited to look at combat sports through academic lenses of gender, of economics, psychology, and we kind of want to keep going, and we want to talk to our friends, our very smart combat sports friends, which we are so lucky to have today. And so that's what we're going to do. This is the epilogue, November 12th. Just to let you know, and then I'm gonna have everyone introduce themselves. We've got Bellator 271, which is starting at 7, I think is the prelims, with Cyborg versus Sinead Kavanagh, I believe. And not too much into this fight in terms of buildup, because I believe, Dan, will you let me know if I got this right? Is it a negative 3,000?
We've got some books here in Virginia where it's minus 5,000, so 50-1 favorite.
So you can't really get supercharged, but I want to talk about Cyborg because I think she brings up a lot. She's been in the sport 15 years. We've got Julie and Dan who were there in 2000. I think she started fighting in 2006. And so we're going to talk about her and her influence on the sport. We're also going to talk about bougie boxing because we had this conversation on Twitter when Hermes, I believe I said that right, put up a pop-up boxing gym in Brooklyn, and had pictures of these very sanitized boxing rings that were white, and no way could anyone fight in them. And they had such classes where they would teach you to do kickboxing with bracelets. And I thought this was an interesting conversation because what does it mean when these luxury brands kind of co-op or appropriate a sport, especially for some reason, this is Brooklyn's, this is where Gleason's is. And does that do anything to the sport or is it good? Maybe Gucci, let's get Venom out and let's get in Yves Saint Laurent. I don't know. I'd like to just talk about it with really smart people. And why are we going to bring up Britney Spears other than that she won her big fight today? She is
Senior.
But I do think, and Julie, we've been talking about gender, we've been talking about exploitation. I do think it's interesting to think about her and look at her, what happened to her. How much was it because she was a woman? And then
100%. Spoiler alert. 150%. And if that happened to a white rich woman, we can only
yes,
you know.
You could
but
see
I'm
that
sorry.
other marginal community
We'll
people may have even harder time.
Exactly. So
I can't wait to get into that. But also kind of thinking about Jamie Spears has been this conservator who's been taking over. It makes me think of Fright Promoters. I'm not going to name names right now, but
Dana White.
Dana White, possibly.
allegedly.
Allegedly. John King, but how much control they have in the fight game and what we should be doing about fighter rights there. So let's just get into our panel. I'm going to go for Nanda. Prates.
Oh, great. No notes. Perfect.
Because you know what, can you introduce yourself? Because you always have so many things going on. You're at Fanbite and as well as you have your podcast. Can you kind of give us a little snapshot?
Yeah, right now I have nothing going on. I have everything and nothing going on at the same time. Ask me for tips. Fernanda Prates is how I would say my own name. I'm still with Fanbite, but I'm actually I did the last episode of Best Camp of My Life, my MMA podcast this week. It was my decision to end it. So we don't have to be sad about it.
To a new chapter, to finishing a grand.
I had a good run. We had a good run. It was fun.
Julie and I got to be on the Best Camp of My Life, which
Dan was the only one left out, but he wasn't well, actually. So that's my excuse. Julie was one of the very few people who did both well, actually, in Best Camp. But I'm still with them now. I'm just only doing a movie podcast, and I'm actually going to start writing about other stuff. So I'm very excited.
Podcast.
I think like after 12 years of MMA, I was like, maybe I should have other interests.
I love it.
Both strategy, Cotton. Let's see how that plays out for her. I feel like we were talking about the betting odds. I was just gonna say when you mentioned the odds, like the super lopsided odds with Cyborg and Shannon, I was just like, I'm glad my life is not a thing that people can bet on because I feel like
honey, I hear you.
I hear you. Things.
I would put.
Fernanda's not getting into weightlifting. But yeah, that's what I'm up to right now. This literally happened this week, so I'm kind of in that transition period. But that's me, also a big Britney fan and enthusiast. So very excited to talk about that.
Oh, I love it. Well, I feel like we're getting a snapshot and an embrace transition. I think that's something we're going, but I think you should bridge film and combat sports. I just got this book and I love it. All about like posters of boxing movies.
That's amazing. So, this week I did the Lionheart. So by the master, the leader supreme of the universe, Jean-Claude Van Damme. So, just saying.
What sport I would say is better or more Jean-Claudean film? We can talk about that later.
It is the gold standard. I will agree with you.
Kumite. So, Fernanda, thank you for being here. Dan, can you chime in? And, I know you have had many lives in the MMA media writing world, including MMA Junkie and then The Athletic. Can you tell us about what's your current status?
Yeah, I kind of shifted to covering legal gambling, primarily sports betting and casinos. I'm a regional content manager now, so I focus on Virginia, where I live, Maryland, DC, and then Florida. So there's a little overlap just with, coming from the sports journalism world. But obviously sports betting is kind of the big thing now, just like MMA was when I first started covering it 15 years ago. So we see those kind of cycles of various things, whether it's MMA or poker or daily fantasy and sports betting. So for better or worse, I always seem to kind of hitch my wagon to one of these fads and trends. And thankfully MMA, I never really kind of got off that wagon. I've been watching for 17 years, covering on and off for about 15 years. So it's funny. We were talking about, Cris Cyborg, and one of the first events that first year I really started covering events was going to Stockton, California to see Nick Diaz fight on a Elite XC event that just happened to be Cris Cyborg's US debut. So it's funny seeing these fighters who've been around forever and realizing I've seen some of their first fights.
Wow. No, it's so interesting. And I would just like to say, Dan, I don't think these are fads. Gambling is certainly not a fad. I think that it's gone hand in hand with sports, especially combat sports. But it is interesting to see how the deregulation of sports betting, how it's factoring. Knowing that my students can bet on their phones is really interesting. Yeah, Julie.
I set up a DraftKings account when I was teaching a seminar in North Carolina, and then I guess betting there isn't legal. So somehow they have $100 of my money and I don't know how to use it. It's in some account somewhere floating around.
Oh my God.
I might ask you for tips. Because that's a lot of money to me.
Is that like,
it's illegal, but there's a loophole.
There's a loophole. Talk to Fernanda and Dan. And then before I get to Julie, Ethan, this is your first visit to the Epilogue, and you are a DC native here, and I'd love for you to talk about your connection. You're a football athlete in college at Dartmouth and Harvard, and then you stayed at Dartmouth and Howard. Excuse me, because then you stayed on at Howard, DC. Hello, and got your degree in psychology, your master's.
Yep.
And you are a huge combat sports historian, analyst. And can you tell us how what is your connection with combat sports?
I've actually been watching combat sports my entire life, from growing up as a kid watching like Tyson and Holyfield, or going back and watching like the Thrilla in Manila and Rumble in the Jungle. And just the art of fighting itself has always been something that I've been extremely attracted to and kind of obsessed with. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm really now into like the psychology of fighting and what is it between the difference in like jiu-jitsu fighters or wrestlers, and what is it that makes them want to fight, what drives them when they get in the octagon, what is it that really motivates them to either stick to what they know or try something new. So Usman going from just wrestling to, when he fought Masvidal, all of a sudden having a striking ability that we didn't know that he had. Or if Ngannou takes someone to the ground, which you never see because he has the craziest hands in the sport. And so whether or not like that's a conscious decision based on, I think I have to do this to win a fight, or I don't think my opponent can beat me, so I'm going to try something new because I have the opportunity. I just think there's a ton of different things, whether it be prepping for a fight during the camp, or actually being in the ring or in the octagon, or when you're going back and watching through the film afterwards, different things that stick in a fighter's mind that make them want to continue to fight or switch their style or switch their camps. There's a myriad of things that I feel like I can go into, and then I just turn into a huge research nerd and want to teach everybody everything I know.
Well, you're in the right spot. And you're also, thank you, Ethan, you're also very much representing academia, and that you're at your side gig right now, which is bouncer at the very she Lost and Found in off of that's in Blagden's Alley.
In Blagden Alley, 1249th Street, Northwest DC, the best bar in DC.
Don't triangulate. People can find you now. The fans will find you.
It's all good. The fans can come. We're open till 3 a.m.
There you go. And you also make us cool, because like I'm here with my cat,
Yeah.
and you know, some my own drinks and peanuts. So thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Julie.
When you invited me yesterday,
I have
sorry,
peanuts as well, so don't worry.
oh, see? When you invited me yesterday, Nancy, and you were like, oh, I don't know if like you're doing like, as in like, oh, I'm sure you have a big social life and you're going to be busy on a Friday. And I'm like, sure. Yeah. I'm very busy, but I'll make sure all of my very exciting engagements. I had several of them, really. I canceled the private jet just to be with you here today.
Hey, I've seen Instagram, honey. So I've seen you with your lovely pictures throughout Europe and Portugal. My favorite is the one of like positioned of your very nice butt in front of a
You do have a nice butt.
You do.
Not to, yeah.
Thank you. I'm weightlifting to get it better. I don't want to make Dan and Ethan uncomfortable, but
sorry, guys.
It's like a little sister talking about her butt.
No apologies needed.
It's okay. That's where the poop comes from. Make it gross again.
But I like the juxtaposition of a church and me being a hoe. And I was like, the duality of men.
That's was what I think most
that's my speed.
That is the mantra to my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I too contain multitudes. So that's kind of where we were going up with that. But that was 2 weeks in Europe, which will feed my Instagram for the next 2 years. That's how it works. You have 2 weeks of fun, and then you act like you're doing great for the rest of your life.
No.
Oh my God, I love you so much. I understand you.
I know. Hey, Julie, my co-professor, my, partner in crime.
I don't know if you can call me a co-professor, Nancy. I never do any work. Like,
oh, please.
Like,
are you kidding me? You've had to do your own, like I've left you high and dry and saying, can you do this whole class? So no.
I love teaching. The problem is I want to love technology, but I'm terrible at it. So for like the first 20 minutes of me teaching that class, it was me fumbling and not having audio and not having visual. I had this beautiful class planned out, like showing the connections. We were going to be taking apart. I don't even remember. It was the Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey fight, but we're going to be looking at it from different viewpoints, from Esther Lynn's amazing video. I've not seen it. It's so beautiful. Her kind of her video blog of that. Or video essay, not even blog, I think is, pulling it down a little bit, but video essay of it. And then like to watching the fight and listening to Bruce Buffer and the way it is live, even though it wasn't really live. And I couldn't get any of them to play. And these poor kids were just like, what the hell is this lady doing? Why are we living? And it's all like, they don't put their videos up. So it's just you talking to yourself on the video and just all these initials. And then you ask a question, nobody says anything. And then there's a comment that says, we can't hear you. After like 20 minutes, you're like, oh my God, I've been talking to myself.
Isn't that a metaphor for
I know, and it's
life?
Like, God damn it, kids, I actually bought a pro account for this. I was so excited to show you my favorite lesson plan, like that I've been teaching kids in creative writing, and nothing happened.
Oh my God.
It was great.
That's giving them the dark side.
That's technology for you.
Yeah, it's technology. That's MMA. Everything is the build up, and then it's just flat. Or you don't think anything about it, and it's the most exquisite thing that ever happens.
Yeah.
That's how I got Grant up on the wall, because just I was teaching a creative writing class at Iowa, and I got offered this class last minute, and I had this one that was all planned, and it was because we were very snobby about essays and the history of the essay. Mine was the history of the essay and violence. And I was trying to talk to them about truth versus fact and the way you present things and how everything is subjective, but it's also these things really do happen. You have to believe in the science of things, but history is always going to change, kids. And just spent so much time on this, and it was just like a dead class. And they offered me another one last minute. They're like, oh, you can teach a advanced creative writing class, however you want to structure it, name it whatever you want. I was like, fighting and writing. Then I went and that's how I found Nancy. I was like, I know this lady teaches a thing. I've seen her videos. I like look it up. I steal her syllabus and I'm like, I'm going to make it about war. And reading the Grant biography. And I'm like, oh my God, the connections between this. And it was one of the best classes I've ever been in. And my best students, they were incredible. And then we connected. I said, I'm stealing your syllabus. I don't know you, but I'm going to do it. And
so honored.
Yeah.
I wrote please take it. And and I wanted to say, can we have coffee and talk about it? But I was like,
that was pre-COVID. Oh, that was the hardest semester, but the last semester I've had a boyfriend. The last semester I've had anything 2 years ago. It was so great. Everything was connecting. The book was happening. And then now I'm just like, I live with my sister.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that I have nothing but this
again,
room.
we sent a relatable queen. I think right before the pandemic, a lot of us were like,
oh my God. Everything was really going to happen
right now.
It was going to happen. And then it just, and then it was 2 years of just gaining weight and drinking a bottle of wine a day. I'm gonna write again. I promise. I'm gonna do it.
It's like George Costanza when he was gonna have the summer of George, yes. And he falls.
My summer of George,
down the stairs. It was your summer of George, Julie. It's gonna be over, okay?
Oh
and
my God! I was just like, I've met the one. This is all gonna be great. And it's just like, well, that didn't work. I've been.
I feel
like it happened because you're here with us.
No job.
Exactly.
Nancy gave me a job, which was wonderful. I found another job, which unfortunately is taking all of my time, and now I'm a terrible teacher.
Full-time job, Julie. But can I say, when you talk about pre-COVID, and you talk about I have found the one, all I can think about is 2 words: The Athletic.
Oh, I was gonna say, Dan and I have some words about
so many angry letters. Oh my God. I was very upset with that.
You might actually win, the 2 of you. I'm like,
yeah. Oh,
and find, and for the public who thought long form writing in combat sports is saved, they've cherry picked my favorite writers.
Motherfuckers.
Yeah, I know. Well, we'll see who has the last laugh. I have nothing to back that up on, but
it won't. Spoiler: it will not be me. It never is.
It'll be the millionaires who sell the website and make a bunch of money.
God!
Spoiler alert! It'll be the rich people.
All right.
I love that for us.
So I'll round out the kind of relatable. Not much to say about myself other than, I am an adjunct professor along, Julie. We teach writing and fighting at American University in DC.
She does all the work.
But that's my only job. And I'm also just a nerd about fighting in this kind of cultural aspect of looking at it and how it connects to history and society. And so let's just get it going here. All right. I love this thing. I'm going to put this question out first, and then let's just discuss. Jump in. What is Bellator's, what is their ethos? Who is their market at this moment?
They're not the UFC. I think that is the biggest thing they have going for them right now.
Isn't that every Scott Coker promotion?
It really,
sorry.
It's the other one is what Bellator is. And it's so weird because
the Pepsi.
Yeah, so many MMA promotion companies now, even any kind of new sports league is a content creation company. That's what it is. And I think that's still what Bellator is, but it just feels like something you do when you don't do the UFC. I don't think they've ever kind of kind of gotten beyond that. You know, they tried the tournaments, they tried the old guys that you resurrect. I feel like they've kind of tried everything, and they just keep settling on being not the UFC.
And a mixture of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because they're in a position, right? Like, if you think about the UFC, a chief complaint we have with the UFC, well, several, but one of them is that they're afraid of change, right? Like, we sometimes talk about tournaments and it seems like we're talking crazy. Like, no, the UFC was never going to go for this. And I think the explanation is very simple. Like, why would they even mess with the product that they have right now, with the deal that they have in place right now? It's like working out so well. Why are you going to change things? And when you're a promotion like Bellator, so you're right there, right? You're not the UFC, but you're the second there. And you have a little more freedom to try different things and to try different formulas. And it can backfire. We've seen it. But also I think it keeps things very interesting. And one of the things that really they do very well is exactly what I just mentioned, the tournaments that really speak to a different time of MMA. It speaks to a sort of nostalgic part of us. And at the same time, they keep it fresh. So I kind of like it. I really like the tournaments. And I that's what I'm always kind of interested in when I look at it. Like, okay, what do you do when you're in that position in the market? Kind of like what Dan said, I think ultimately it ends up coming back to being not the UFC, but I do think that we see some like attempts.
Yeah. I know. And I'm curious. I think I heard that back when we had more regional MMA and we were doing more live with crowds, did they try and do regional fighters? Was that more of what they were trying to do on their cards?
I think they were trying to sell tickets by using the local guys on the prelims.
The local talent.
I was just talking to someone like that's kind of how Michael Chandler got his start with Strikeforce. I remember going and covering a card in St. Louis, and I think it was his second or third pro fight. And it was like he was a wrestler, but looked like a very well-rounded guy. And I talked to Coker. I was like, is that the kind of guy like you get on these prelims, you know, and you could build and sign them, and you found this guy. And it was kind of like, he's from Missouri. We used him in St. Louis. You know, we'll see how it goes. But it's like, well, if you're not even going to pounce when you find a diamond in the rough, what are you doing?
Wow.
I think you have to be told that it's a diamond. Oh, excuse me. Go ahead.
I don't know. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say you have to be told by somebody else it's a diamond in the rough.
Oh yeah, I think Bellator is kind of taking the approach very much like pro wrestling used to, and kind of how it is now, where people are just kind of oversaturated and sick of seeing Dana White's face on TV all the time and the same exact formula for every fight. So sometimes you want to see Fedor, sometimes you might want to go see Vitor Belfort, whether or not he got popped for PEDs again or not, and you just kind of want to see fighting in its natural element without necessarily all the commercial backing and everything, the kind of machine that the UFC has become now. And I think it's kind of a good thing because it gives you something to look forward to that's not the mainstream fight card. So it gives you something else to talk about. It's kind of like that popular counterculture kind of feel of, well, I'm still watching MMA and I'm watching really interesting fights, but it's not, is Conor McGregor going to come back and lose another fight because he doesn't have it anymore? Or what's Tyron Woodley doing now that he's lost another 4 fights in a row and lost to Jake Paul?
Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective. Sorry, Nancy, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think you're totally right about that, Ethan. I think one of the problems is that you can't bank on nostalgia. Because then people just get really, really sad. At least I get really sad when I see some of the legends fight now. I don't want to see them fight anymore. I want to remember them as legends.
Then you've already bought it. Like, that's my thing.
No, I get the illegal stream, but yeah. Sue me.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Okay.
Allegedly, I've never watched a trailer promotion in my life. I can't stay up that late. It's too long. But honestly, you're right. You've already bought it. You've already bought what's been packaged. You're right, Fernanda. But it is.
But I don't know if it's sustainable. I'm with you. I'm kind of like, I'm always like, I wonder how sustainable that is in the long run. And that's kind of what I wonder about everything. I'm bad at business. Obviously, I'm not rich. I don't know money. Never hire me for money related matters. But I'm kind of with you there. Like, I think it's an easy selling of tickets of that one particular pay-per-view. You're going to get those eyeballs. And then what are you going to do with that? And that's where I think eventually you're going to run out of nostalgia, I think. Maybe not. Maybe they're just geniuses and thinking ahead, but
I think it's from, go ahead.
No, you go first.
I was just going to say, I think they're cashing in what's already been created for them, right? Like the Fedor legend or the Vitor legend or whatever. You give it Bellator. I don't think Bellator is necessarily this way. I think they do it to a certain degree, but Triller and all these other things cash in on the legend that's already been created as long as you can. And it's great for old people like me who they were the legends, so they're still the legends to me. I don't want to learn about new legends. I'm tired. But the new ones, I'm fine. Just give me 10 legendary fights, and I'm gonna remember you. But it's got to take 10 because I don't know all the new guys and I can't keep up because the UFC, it's about the conveyor belt, new fighter. This is this guy, contender series, new. So that the product is always the UFC coming at you. Whereas Bellator does, and Triller and these, they cash in on the names, boxing style. And I totally pretend I'm an authority when it comes to that, but I don't know anything about their business models at all, except for the, pack the undercard with local fighters when you're traveling and then get the names at the
Bellator mixes it up, right? Like they kind of mix it up a lot with having a bunch of, and I remember at least when I was doing writing a lot about Bellator for Junkie, there were a lot of just very young guys who were very early in their pro careers and who are already getting a lot of, and people complain about that. Like, oh, this fighter should not be in the main card. Remember with Aaron Pico, I think it's a very good example. Mm-hmm. They hyped him up too much. They're propping him up too much. So Bellator to me always kind of had the two things, like betting hard on these like very young prospects already early on their careers and also going hard on the legends. Mm-hmm. Triller and not these other things, I might be very wrong. They don't look to me like long-term projects. And I don't think they see themselves as long-term projects, right? So just saying that I'm not comparing both in any way. I think it's just entirely different things. Ethan was going to say something and I jumped in. I'm really sorry.
I did too. Sorry.
Hang on. Skip me. I'm doing work.
I'm sorry.
I want to see him bounce.
I know. He's going to throw someone out of there.
De-escalate, do things in real life. I haven't done that in so long.
Okay. I'm back now. So I'm multitasking and checking IDs. But I think when you look at like a Bellator or you look at a Strikeforce, at least for the fan base, it's very much about like that nostalgic moment of like, Vanderlei Silva in his prime and his stare down with Mirko Krokop. And it's like, those moments, or Gabriel Gonzaga knocking Krokop out with his own head kick that you've never seen before. Like the things that when UFC wasn't as big and mainstream and popular, like the MMA faithful that were watching when the Matt Hugheses and Matt Serras of the world were running their division, when GSP came in and just took the sport by storm. Like that's what people are looking for, rather than, okay, I've been told I'm supposed to like this fighter and I'm not supposed to like this fighter, or who's going to be a good guy this time, who's going to be a bad guy this time. It's kind of getting too gimmicky for me with a lot of like the mainstream UFC to the point where there's like, okay, who can sell the fight the best? And I'm like, the promoters are the ones who sell the fight. You look back at a Don King. He sold the fights and the fighters just got in there and did what they had to do. Now it's more of a matter of, okay, which political ideology can you hitch your wagon to get a certain fan base to like you and a certain fan base to hate you? And then these people are going to bet against you. And it really goes all more into the sports betting and more so the entertainment than the art of the fighting itself. So I think Bellator and MMA and Strikeforce are kind of the last bastion of being able to really hold on to that just pure enjoyment of MMA. And sometimes the fighter hit or miss, but it's nice to have that alternative option.
I would put a plug in there for Invicta, but
yes.
I understand it doesn't get the same kind of coverage and same from me, but I'm never going to not plug Invicta. So.
Can I bring up one thing when I think about like Bellator and Invicta? I guess would we include maybe LFA? I think is also one that's it's on tonight as well. is that they can have sponsors. I love that. I love, I got to sponsor, Writing and Fighting sponsored Jillian DeCourse, right? I missed that. It also, payment wise, there's this whole idea, do you guys know that Coker seems to suggest that he pays his fighters in a more equitable way? I don't know if that's true or not, but at least they can get their own money from sponsorships, correct?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, too far removed. Yeah.
I think the UFC is the only one who's really used that model where we get most of your money that you generate plus your sponsorship money. So.
Yes. So I think that's okay. Well, this is another question. What channel? How do I watch Bellator?
Well,
that's the main thing, right? Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, you can't even find like the free streams of it. So you really have to, like, I really have to pay for Showtime to watch Bellator, which, you know.
And is it Showtime pay-per-view or is it Showtime regular cable?
Regular, like if you have a Showtime subscription, then you'll be able to get the events live or on demand. But then the prelims, I think, are still just on YouTube.
Oh.
See, who goes on TV anymore, to be honest? Like, right. Not that Invicta's also on Access, so I don't want to, but.
No, it's fine. I don't go on TV anymore.
I know.
If I'm not at an Invicta, then it means it's not in Kansas City. So I mean, that hasn't happened in a long time. So,
but I remember when I was in Europe, not this time, last time, there was simply no way to watch Bellator in Portugal. Like, yeah, you just couldn't. And like, it was hard to find that information. Now I don't know. Maybe it's different. So I hear like people asking. So I think it's a little complicated outside the US. Like they could afford to make it clear of where we can watch them. Here in Mexico, we can actually, I think we can still watch all of it on YouTube.
That's interesting.
We have been watching it on YouTube. Yeah. So
I almost think.
Go to Mexico. Yay, Mexico.
Dude, Mexico. I'm again. So on board with Mexico's politics right now.
You should all come here.
I really want
Mexico welcomes you. And if you want a license, you don't even have to take a test. They really just give it to you. I'm not even joking. Of course, this reflects accordingly in traffic, but that's a small price to pay.
You know, you have to learn your lesson somehow.
I would love to cheers the Mexican customs who stole the wine that I tried to
send. Stole the wine. Nessie sent me wine and they were charging like the price of so much wine for me to retrieve the wine.
Much better wine too. We're talking like
it was insane. It was
I know, because then
I was out Nancy.
I had to pay that much money or more to have it sent back to me, or they're like, "Oh, we'll just keep it." And so,
and then exactly, that was kind of it.
There you go.
Donated to customs?
Mexico.
Donated it.
Okay, well, boo on the wine thing, but great on the pro-choice legislation.
But I also wonder.
That's good. You're right.
They could make this clearer, and Dan, where to find it. I mean, we live in an age where Google gives us the top, percentage of beats, and they could have it clear. Do they keep us in this weird thing on purpose? Maybe because I don't know. Like, or maybe I'm giving them too much credit that they would deliberately be misleading us.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's go to
that's fair.
Yeah.
I've only had like really good experiences with Bellator PR. The athletes say wonderful things about their treatments with them. So obviously all of these are points. And it's not PR's fault. But it's kind of, it looks a little, I think it's kind of a mess.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm just not looking hard enough.
No. I think if for Nanda, you're an MMA writer, journalist, if you can't find it, that says everything.
Yeah.
And I mean, it wouldn't be MMA if it wasn't a mess in some way.
Right.
You're right. You have to earn it. It's like with MMA, with each passing day, they just test you more and more. Like you're constantly having your loyalty tested. And it's all just to know if you're an actual fan who deserves it.
That's right.
I have this theory. It's
I
it's by design, Julie.
I believe you.
It's not just a mess. It's all part of a bigger plan. So only the true fans stay, because we as a sport dislike the
true
casuals.
suckers
So
stay.
The suckers, the fans, the suckers, and you get pulled back in. You don't want to be gone, or you want to be gone. You don't want to be in anymore. You think I'm free. I'm not in this fucking hell that is the MMA landscape. And then you just get sucked right back in. And you're like, oh, I forgot how this just makes me feel all tingly and good about life. This one tiny millisecond out of all of the hours of pain, and you're in it again.
But then
looking for it.
You watch KT Chandler and you're like, I saw, as Ethan brought the art, I saw like human beings showing the best of themselves. And then you're like, okay.
That's where you're like, this is why I put up with the bullshit, so that I get to watch this kind of stuff every once in a while. Like, this makes it worth all the crap you have to go through.
Exactly.
It's so true.
And the FOMO is so bad. Sorry, Julie.
It's okay. I watched it in replay. I didn't order the event. I didn't even get an illegal stream. I was too tired. But I will say, no, but that is allegedly. That is the beautiful thing about it, though, right? Like, it is human nature. Like, you can absolutely hate somebody's politics, every single fucking thing they say, but you see them fight, and you're like, man, that is beautiful.
Yeah,
that is art right there. I hate you. And I want you not to die, but just to suffer immensely. Maybe the amount of suffering you're wishing on other people, whether you are consciously aware of it or not, because of what your choices are and because of what your ignorance brings. But goddamn, you can fight. Like, goddamn, you can fight.
Like begrudgingly admiring the person.
Just
like, God damn it. You have the spirit of a warrior.
I know.
You have no quit in you, you asshole. God damn it.
Brad,
I wish I knew how to quit you. I may have quoted Brokeback Mountain, or maybe I just made that up. You never know.
I mean,
Heath Ledger is always a win.
That's true. Well,
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I feel like this is the last, like, I love that note. What you keep, I can't quit you, because you're right. The MMA gods, they torture us. They have the Dana Whites. They have, I went to UFC 239, I believe, where I was going to see John Jones in Vegas, and drove 10 hours round trip to LA thinking, what the F? Oh, I can't believe I'm doing this. But then, like, they'll drop like a Chris Barnett, who I just I'm like want to just like putting on a teddy bear.
Just tug on the heartstrings.
Oh my God.
So I think
Chris Barnett is all of us.
Oh, I watched that a couple times. Yes. So anyway, well, Cyborg, let's go from Barnett to Cyborg. Because I think I would love to hear Dann and Julie, like, when you first saw Cyborg coming on the scene, did you project that she would have this 15-year arc?
For me, like I said, the first fight was Elite XC, and I was just thinking about this today because I knew we were going to talk about it. For me, I had heard that she was scary, that she was well-rounded, like she was competent on the ground, had these amazing striking skills. But I remember at the time, I kept thinking back to Anderson Silva's UFC debut, and how so many UFC fans were skeptical. Like, Levin said, this is different. This is the UFC. And I think half of us or anybody was kind of half like, he may be right. Like, this, we've heard of guys are going to show up on the scene and do all this, and then they crap out. But then it's like, well, what if it's like an Anderson Silva? What if it's like a Fedor, where they're the real deal? Like, that's, and you don't want to get too excited about that, because I've been burnt, especially when I first started covering MMA, like every manager, every agent, every promoter was selling me on the next big thing. And every fucking time I would fall for it. Like, it's like, this is, I know now. And then you go watch him get destroyed. So even with Cyborg, I was in the odds, they opened, I think it was basically a pick 'em, or Cyborg was a a small underdog to Shayna Baszler.
Yeah.
And I remember the whole argument was, well, but she knows how to wrestle. She's really good on the ground. And, you know, I went back and watched that fight last night. And it's like, oh, I remember watching this and thinking, it doesn't matter if she's not good on the ground because she's too strong to take her down. And even if you take her down, she's just going to push up and get back up. So I don't know. I think for me, kind of thinking back to the early days of Cyborg, it was, don't get your hopes up, but I'm going to get my hopes up because she looks like the real deal.
Isn't that another MMA staple? Not going to get my hopes up, she said, while getting her hopes up.
Cautious optimism.
Yeah.
We love to bank on that phrase, that cautious optimism. Yeah. No, I Cyborg was like, to me, for some reason, I had this idea in my head because I would just totally mix her up with Vanderlei, who was like my favorite fighter when I first started fighting. I was watching all the Pride stuff and all the stuff, and then I would see her fight or her like reel of videos because I think there was still dial up. I don't remember, but you know, just like watching and be like, I love this woman. I love this woman, and I loved Shayna. Like, I mean, you feel like a personal connection to people you fought before, and you're just like, oh no, Shayna, you can pull this off, you can win. And it's just like, no, no. You see the first kind of takedown defense, you see what happens, you see the get ups, you're like, no. And I was a huge Cyborg fan.
You're a competitor. Like, you're going to have to fight this lady, though.
I wanted to fight her. I wanted to be the person who beat Vanderlei. And the truth of the matter is, like, there's no way. I mean, I could have pulled out, speaking of Matt Serra, pulled out one of those Matt Serra, like hitting the person at the right time in the worst part of their entire life. Like, you know, like getting that one knockout and becoming that, and then, you know, just getting destroyed later on. I mean, that was like, I had a like 1 in a million shot but I never got to fight with her. Which is great because that wasn't my weight class. You know, it would be stupid for me to take a fight against her. And I ended up being the matchmaker when she fought at Invicta, and the headache of trying to matchmake her was incredible. And like, I signed an NDA, so I can't talk about all of it, but needless to say, I'm not as stupid as some of the people thought I was when I made the matches. Like, there was a lot of fucking thought that went into that, a lot of work. But I loved her. And when I met her, I loved her as a person. And I remember when she fought Carano, and at the time I was still, you know, an active competitor thinking, oh, I might get to rematch Carano someday, or I might get to fight Cyborg someday, even though I don't think I was with Strikeforce at that time, and just loving Cyborg so much. But then you have that, again, it's that connection you feel, somebody who was a previous opponent, which I do not feel that connection anymore. Yes, I do, but no, I don't. Politically,
it's complicated.
No, it's complicated.
It's complicated.
Goddamn MMA God.
But there are layers.
Oh God.
To that relationship.
Oh my God. You know. I told you about that, man. I can't even begin. Like,
go to Fanbyte, type Fanbyte Julie Kedzie.
Oh God. It is just a rant.
And there's a whole explanation.
Oh my God. It's like,
there's the whole
take my praise down. No, don't take it down. Like, it's just me going through basically all my craze. But I remember when Cyborg all of a sudden, like, it turned around, like, I thought it was fairly even. I gave the upper hand to Cyborg, and I was trying to be all clinical, and I was watching it with like one other person, like a teammate in my apartment. And I remember all of a sudden just Cyborg taking over and Gina like curling up and me going, no, Gina, you can do it. And like surprised. And was that me saying that? I was like, get up, Gina, get up. Like, am I cheering for Gina right now? But I want that rematch. You know, I can have a better chance of it. She's not the champion. And like, and just like, but yeah, no, but also just loving that Cyborg won that fight, loving her performance, loving the way she carried herself, and totally, like, I always come on this podcast or our talks, and I always like do that Karen white lady dumb cringe thing where I apologize for myself, but I am sorry that I didn't defend her more against Rogan when I was on his podcast. I should have stuck up for her more. I should have stuck up for Fallon Fox more. Like, there's times in my life when I'm caught completely off guard, and I'm like, I think I need to have an audible apology. Like, but I think I need to put that out there.
You just happen to be like in a very big platform. I can absolutely, when you say that, I can absolutely relate. You happen to be on a big platform, caught on a, like you said, caught by surprise. And I would only imagine being in your place and having those like, oh my God, I should have. But the truth is, you know, like we're human and we all
try to suck our own dicks.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just totally cut you off. We all try to suck our own dicks in a way, right? Like we all try really.
It's your experience.
No, but you know what?
I'm just saying that while I understand you being a little hard on yourself in that regard, I don't think you should, because like.
Thank you. Yeah, I do appreciate that. Because it's like, you know, you're always looking for forgiveness for something when really the only person who can forgive you is yourself. It's like he was like, no, she did this to her body. And then I'm like, dude, this is bro science, and just not interrupting because you can't when somebody else is in control. You can't. So you're right, Fernanda. Yeah, you're totally right. But thank you. Yeah.
And it's like, I would imagine, was it intimidating for you, the sort of, because he wasn't as big, obviously, as he is now, because Joe Rogan is probably the most influential person in America, and let's all let that sink in for a second. But
that's pretty accurate.
The thing is, it wasn't intimidating. I was irritated at that time in my life. I don't think people knew how poor I was in graduate school. Like I was going to the food pantry to eat. Like I had no money. I was surprised by not having no money, but like I'd given up my job with Invicta except for commentary. I was like, you know, and I didn't want to tell my family how I had no money, no food. So I like went to California on spring break because I got a grant and I wanted to write this paper. And I'm sure I bugged the shit out of him or whoever his agent is by being like, can you confirm I'm going to be here at this time? Like I got this rental car. I'm staying in this like $30 a night trailer in the, where was the Charlie Manson murders? What valley is that?
San Fernando? Another valley.
I feel disappointed in myself because I read a lot of literature on horrible people, and I don't remember that.
I hope to be there someday.
And so
I can't remember what it's in California. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous. It was absolutely beautiful. But I never shared my essay about the whole experience with anybody because it got trashed in grad school and I'm not over the scars yet. But it was like I wanted to get this interview with him for this essay I was writing. And I wanted to talk about commentary and I wanted to talk about him. I didn't want to talk about politics or any of these other fucking things that were bothering me about him. But of course, that's exactly where I went because you're in there and it's very intimate. And he's very beguiling. And it's this one-on-one experience with somebody. And it's like, and I like him. I don't want to like him. I hate the shit and the people he has on there, but I think is a genuinely good human being. And that's what all this other noise kills me about. It's like one time I had a nightmare about Donald Trump and it was the worst nightmare in the whole fucking world because I was like at a Taco Bell and then he came in and sat at a Taco Bell with me and he spilled like burrito all over his shirt.
Ethan's face on that was amazing.
I felt sorry for him because he had burrito all over his shirt and that was my dream and I felt horrible. I was like, that's how they get you, Julie. Like my other brain in my dream. No, you can't feel sorry for him. That's how they get you. You can't feel human compassion for this human being. He's a monster. I mean, it's the same thing. It's like I still like Joe. Like, and I hate every single fucking thing and I disagree with almost everything. But I think this is a person who took the sport that I love and that I want to make somehow a part of my entire existence, which I guess I have, like a part of it. And this person was a voice in that sport and a powerful, important voice, even though maybe not contemporary anymore, maybe not relevant anymore. I don't know. Maybe he's moved on to the worst of human nature, but God, yeah.
I really get that, Julie. Cause like, and this is something I always make I don't know, Joe Rogan, particularly Joe, we're on a first name basis.
I don't know, Joe.
I think it's on a first name basis with America. So there's that, and the world. But one thing I always talk about when I have these sort of conversations and I'm criticizing somebody who I don't know, is like what we're talking about is not Joe Rogan the human, because honestly, only the people who are in his close circle know Joe Rogan the human. Like I'm not equipped to criticize Joe Rogan the human, and I wouldn't. I'm not judging his character. I'm not. What we're talking about when we talk about these things is we're talking about the public person, the persona,
the brand.
That's who we have access to, the brand. Exactly. That's who we have access to. And it's entirely different things. And it's the one thing I'm always hammering when I talk to people about like, but they're very nice. And you get that a lot. And like, I don't know, maybe they are. You get that a lot with like Kobe Covington, right? A lot of people with me, he was extremely nice. The sole interaction we've had, super polite, super nice, really kind human being. I have no bad words to talk about Kobe Covington, the human person. I have lots to say about the public person. And I think that's kind of where the conflict kind of lies, right? But then you were on a show. What year was that?
I think 2017. It was episode 933 because that's the name of the essay I wrote that I never published.
Oh, okay.
Because I somehow think it's unethical to publish
Nancy,
it without running
Nancy, get on it.
I'll get it.
I have so much unpublished work.
Pull some strings, Nancy.
Oh, geez.
Oh, yes.
I mean, when you really think about it, though, that's kind of the evolution of the fight game now. Like, I've heard from a ton of people that Kobe is really nice in person, but at the same time, he has this persona that makes you want to see him get his head kicked in every time he gets in the ring. And that sells tickets, and that puts butts in the seats, and it makes money for him. It makes money for Dana White. It's exactly what you need. It's the same thing, whether you love Conor or you hate Conor, he's a polarizing figure. And I'm sure outside of the ring, his friends know him, and he's probably the coolest person ever. But when that spotlight is on and the camera is on, it's business time, and you got to sell tickets. You know what I mean? And so it's just kind of like the evolution of the game, where there used to be a time where the fight promoters would be the ones like having all the bravado and hyping everybody up. And now fighters are kind of taking it upon themselves. And because we have social media and you can interact at such an intimate level with professional fighters and like beyond a celebrity basis, the more interactions you get into, the more people are paying attention to your fight. It's the same way with Kevin Durant in basketball on Twitter. He gets into it with random people all the time, but as soon as he does, they talk about it on ESPN, and then everybody's going to watch whoever they're playing that night, whether they're going to win by 2 or win by 50. You just want to see what happens based off the fact that he got into it with someone on Twitter. So it's kind of the evolution with social media of the fight.
So, and Ethan, I think this discourse, what we're having right now, is evident of that we're talking about Colby Covington, and he was able to headline the MSG card, even though that facade irritates me, because I would appreciate this nice Covington that I've heard about.
I wouldn't even care if he's an asshole if that was really him. Like if he was just legitimately an asshole, it's like, okay, like we've dealt with a lot of those people. It's like Chad, Chad Dundas and Ben Folks say, it's like, oh, I'm not really an asshole. I'm just doing it for money. It's like, well, that doesn't make it any better. Like, now
it's true. You know, it's funny. Capitalism just flattens everyone, doesn't it? Because that assholeness has such with Joe Rogan, with Colby Covington, with the things, it has such a, and I'm not going to say that, you know, the super pro socialist Julie message is always the right one. I don't think it is, but I will say that, like, yes, doing it for but doing it for the money, like, sure does cause a lot of other people to die and suffer, like inadvertently or advertently. I don't know. I don't think advertently is a word, but yeah.
So interesting, because I think, well, like the greatest example of this is Floyd Mayweather. You know, when he wants people to hate him so that he gets fights that are made, which are very irrational. I mean,
well, the domestic violence tape from that was horrifying.
Yes,
but
yes.
Yeah.
No, I know, but he is the highest paid athlete.
Was there a tape even? Ugh.
Oh,
I didn't know
the audio tape.
I just know about
he is an asshole. I think what you and I, Julie, talked about is that Colby Covington, it comes off as just like bad acting.
Yeah,
and that's what irritates me, where his son could sell it. And I was in.
He can sell his racism. Good for you, Chael. But it's true. You're right, though. But I mean, Chael, the whole thing with feeding carrots to the bus. On one hand, yeah, that's really funny if you come from the perspective of somebody who's doing very well in America. But if you're in Brazil and you're Brazilian who's coming, like, that's a fucking horrific. Like, come on, Chael. But it was really funny to me because I'm complicit. Like, that's the thing, is like, it's
too, and I'm
to have to
Brazilian.
examine things. Oh, I guess sorry for Nanda. I just totally flattened you.
No, but that's the thing. What I'm saying, it's exactly what you're. And again, I'm very privileged in my own universe. I'm a white Brazilian who grew up middle class white in Brazil. I have all the privileges that come with that, which to the outside world might look entirely different, but through my lens do that too. So when Chael said that, and I'm pretty sure I was there in that press conference, to me it was hilarious. Like, the whole thing was hilarious. I had to really re-examine it.
Yeah, no, and I think he's hilarious, and he's a really nice guy, like, and
he's
very
smart.
funny and smart. Yeah.
I think that's what shines through. Well, can we move on to subjects, because we have some other things, and not that I love how we got into kind of the facade, conceptual self versus authentic. I mean, we're really getting into some discourse that
Right.
go on and on about. But let's start with the bougie boxing, because I thought this was interesting. I'll just do a full disclosure. I was reading the New Yorker, white privilege, the person.
Hey, I have 2 accidental subscriptions to that. I don't know how I get 2 of those every week. It's really embarrassing. I have no money, and
it's hard to quit. They keep it.
to get that one story. Yeah.
But I'm looking at it and I see an ad for, it was last weekend. I could have gone. I was in New York, of this pop-up boxing gym for Hermes, excuse me, that was happening where you could sign up.
I have no idea how to say it. So I'm Elizabeth Berkley wearing Versace. Like
Versace.
Showgirls. Shout out to Showgirls. Okay, so I'm looking at it and I'm like, is this real? And so I hit up my girls of the MMA club, who I know like understand culture and stuff. Like, what is this? Because I think I wrote, is this for real? Is this just an ad, like spoof, or is it like a satire on the leisure classes, co-oping or taking over community gyms and sanitizing it for capitalism, if we're going to talk about it. So why I want to bring it up is, like, I saw that this is not new, and I thought it was interesting. My a student kind of brought this up in class, that we've always kind of like the bougie class or leisure class. I mean, that's why it's a gentleman's sport, is that they took bare knuckle, which, was underground and in the streets. And then it became this gentleman's sport for the upper classes. And that's why you wore gloves and you had the Queensberry rules. So I think it's interesting. My question is why does the leisure class or luxury market, why do they do these things with taking the boxing gym? And they might do this in other areas, because I saw it in Louis Vuitton. I put some stuff on Twitter. I saw some other things where, like, you can buy a $750,000 punching bag that has Louis Vuitton on it. And I'm like,
don't tell Conor McGregor about this.
Sure he knows.
I think it comes down to the fundamental feeling of why anyone does anything. It's usually because I can. Like, any other reason that someone gives you is usually bullshit or some excuse that they want you to believe. But it's really because I wanted to and because I can. And because the leisure class tends to feel very entitled to anything and they don't want to be left out of anything. So like, well, I can buy my way into this and make it too fancy and too expensive for the have-nots. And it's just fundamental human nature, which is kind of sad when you think about it. But it's essentially Gladiator. You're not actually in the arena to fight to the death. You're just there to watch and cheer on the blood sport and feel like you're a part of it, and tell your friends that you were there over wine and cheese, so you feel like you were a part of the experience. But at the same time, you don't have any real connection to the fighters or to the sport or to the art of it. You just don't want to feel left out because you feel like you're entitled to have a part of anything that any other group is doing.
Yeah, invisible man, right? Like, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's co-opting.
Right, go ahead, Judy.
Yeah, no, I would go ahead. You go, because I was gonna ramble about English literature shit.
No, please do. I'm sorry.
No, go,
Professor.
Go. I was
Professor. No, to me, it's not even. It's the thing. When Nancy showed the thing, I thought it was satire. I looked it up and saw that it was on Harper's Bazaar. But to me, what was surprising, it's not that necessarily this happens, because I don't understand how a lot of things happen. It's kind of like what Ethan was saying. I think a lot of it is just because I can, and that's why why are Louis Vuitton things a thing? I have no idea. They're just a thing. It's a thing that you have to show that you're something, right? It's all about status. That's what all these luxury brands, that's what they're there for, right? They're not necessarily better. They just say you're better to the world. But what surprised me wasn't that it was necessarily happen. I just think that looking at the world, not to get too zeitgeisty, but we're at a very eat the rich time. Like in 2021, the cool thing, we're not enjoying millionaires. And even if you are a rich person, like the tendency is for you to go on Instagram and talk about mindfulness and talk about wellness, talk about how like you do yoga and you like nature. Like you're not into material things. That's tacky. That's 2005. We're not doing that anymore. Now we're finding ourselves, we're soul searching, we're connecting with our spirits, which is a very privileged thing, of course, because not everybody can afford to just hang out at a beach and meditate and do yoga. But to me, that was to me the weirdest thing, because I saw and I was like, who is that for? Because technically the idea, I think, is for it to be Instagrammable. But this is not what I think young people are really looking for right now. I don't know. I don't think so. They do wear complicated pants. I don't understand. So is it for older women who are like really fancy? I don't know.
I think your idea that being in touch with the masses, because, what do I think of Brooklyn? Well, Brooklyn has been sanitized and gentrified. Don't call them yuppies anymore, but for an upper class who like to have dogs and coffee shops, right? But there's another side to Brooklyn, and that includes Gleason's, right? That this historic gym where, I mean, you could name the names. I mean, Testamato, and that's where all these people trained out of. For me, I'm wondering, are they trying to show that we are kind of with you, and we're with the community? And Hermes is not about luxury flying and getting into your jet. It's about going to your community boxing ring. I don't know. I'm just trying. I am trying to connect that may not ever connect, as Ethan has said.
No, was my face of like, or maybe that's a weird thing if you're thinking that. Because sorry that you're gonna say.
I know.
I was gonna say, it from a literary standpoint, it very much reminds me of the Iliad. I had a writing seminar when I was at Dartmouth that was just called Reading and Writing the Iliad. That was our entire thing, so it was just the fights. And I feel like it's very much the example of Patroclus wanting to put on Achilles' armor when Achilles says, no, I'm not going to fight, and I want to move like you, and I want to look like you, and it's all going to be great, until there's repercussions and Patroclus dies. And all of a sudden you're hit with the reality of what combat and what war itself actually is. And so this is kind of like a sanitized environment where they can feel like they're putting on the armor of like the warriors they idolize and the struggle that they've seen, so they can feel like they're a part of it without actually having the repercussions of having to live through that type of life. And it's like acting. It's them being a movie star. It's your chance to be Rocky in Rocky 2 and skip Rocky 1 and lose the fight. You're automatically the hero and you're the champion and you feel great and you want to show everybody that, and you want to be like, this is where I work to, but you don't actually want to have the chance to take an L. You're not a real fighter. You've never actually been put down. You just want the glory.
Ethan, I think that's so fucking fascinating. And what I love about that is that you compared it to acting, because what's funny is if you act, I'm blanking. Who's the very famous who's a very famous actor who was in Warrior?
Oh, Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy. Not the other one who I thought was amazing.
Egerton.
I love that. I've met him. He is a tremendous good human being, but of course I'm biased because if you meet somebody, you love them. But Tom Hardy,
He's the love of my life. So just
no. I'm not going to say something shitty about
Tom Hardy.
it.
Tom Hardy is the greatest. We can all agree on that.
No, Tom Hardy is amazing. I didn't get to meet him, so I'm biased. But no, but like the thing about like is I believe because he took on so much in that role that he believed he could beat anybody, which is what bothers me. Like Nancy and I share a love for mocking the Real Housewives, but also secretly loving them, but also mocking them, but loving them. It's a very complicated relationship. Yep. It's not even a guilty pleasure. It's like, oh my God, 40 and 50-year-old women who are being praised and given a platform on TV and succeeding at it. Like whether they're bad or they're good, 40 and 50-year-old women don't really get this platform to actually be themselves. And it's kind of incredible because they have very powerful, strong voices, usually directed at each other, but that's another argument.
Maybe a little misguided, but but it's all curated. It's all curated for an audience. I heard this beautiful thing saying it's turned into true crime, and actually that's really amazing. But again, I haven't had Vyvanse in like 3 weeks, guys. I can't afford it anymore. Even with insurance, it's killing me. I'm all over the place.
I actually love it.
I can't even drink anymore, like without going, that stuff kept me on track.
Tom Hardy.
Okay, so I believe that he could fight any fighter and he could be a UFC fighter and win during that. Like I believed he was so committed in that role. Like I'm gonna say Patroclus wrong. Did I say Patroclus wrong?
I feel like there's probably like 10 different pronunciations.
You're right. And
you're all so fancy and smart. I don't know who that is. No, I don't know her.
Said it. I haven't read the Iliad. I pretended to read the Iliad even when I was supposed to read the Iliad.
I just didn't understand it yet.
I fucking read Herodotus without reading Herodotus. But like the thing is, like you take on that just like a fighter. You believe if you don't walk into the fucking cage and don't believe you can beat anybody in the world, then you don't belong there. That's one of the reasons I retired, because I was like, I don't think I can beat Ronda Rousey, and nobody's gonna give me that fight, and I'm losing all the time. I should retire. Like I'm not gonna get anywhere. But and I don't want to fight in the minor leagues. I've been in the UFC. I'm done. It's the same kind of thing. It's like Patroclus putting on that armor is kind of walking into the cage and having to put that armor on yourself and believe that you can beat anybody in the world. And I don't know, like Tom Hardy in the fighter mode believes he can beat anybody in the world. You have to put that on, but at the same time, you really can't. And reality doesn't maybe enter into the world you've built here for yourself. I have lost complete track of what we were talking about in the first place.
Absolutely.
Somebody else.
No, you're still on track.
I have a question that comes from that because, look, I will put on a dress and go and act like I'm a 1930s film star at Jazz Club.
And we love that about you. It's beautiful.
Yes. It's amazing.
And I kind of don't give a shit. And I'm like, I'm going to wear fancy. Now, though, I know that I'm not a movie star. And I don't think that I'm harming 1930s film or that I'm harming the jazz club scene. The question is when is this harmful? And for me, what I think could be harmful is that more of these kind of sanitized, come and pretend to be a boxer, take over the neighborhood gym or something like that. And another thing too, because I'm very much understanding fashion, like one of the pictures I saw of the Louis Vuitton had a girl, wearing like a bikini top, whatever, like almost like she was a dominatrix, kicking a punching bag, and she looked like she was not even an atom weight, And I'm like, that's not boxing.
My theory in all of this is it becomes harmful when you purposely leave out the voices of the people who say it's harmful. You have to integrate those voices. You have to integrate the voices of the people who are harmed when you hear that it's harmful. And so when I first started, I thought I was supposed to take sexy pictures of myself, and God knows where they went. They got stuck in somebody's hard drive. I don't know where they are. They could be out there floating around. Now I'd love to see them because I was like 20 something. I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, put those out there. I love it. But the thing is, like, I shouldn't have had to want to do that, right? For attention. And in the 1930s, the voices that were being left out, Black people, Asian people, anybody whose skin was darker or whose, I would say maybe not ethnic, although ethnic identity, yeah, definitely wasn't part of the brand. I mean, all of a sudden I'm thinking about Josephine Baker and how I fucking idolize her, but how she had to go to Paris
exactly
to like
performing an artifice, because those movies in the 1930s, that was the Depression. They didn't exist, these supper clubs. Maybe
but even the people we think about in the Depression are the white people who had to go west. Exactly. And I hate to talk like from this perspective, because I'm being like acting like I'm an authority on it, and I'm not. I'm just thinking about all the voices that are left out in that, and then to turn it into this like, we're sexy boxers, like that kind of thing, like with the whole like,
yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, if we go to the very cold idea, and you guys should shut me up because I'm talking way too much, the cold idea of branding and what it is, it's like in fashion or whatever it is, you're always trying to push the limit and go to the next thing and the next big thing, and like what hasn't been done yet, let's appeal to this. I remember so much, like a whole bunch of models and people like that back in the day kept hashtagging savage. And it was way back in the day. It was like maybe 5-10 years ago. And like savage. And it was just like, that is actually not a cool thing to say when that's how like colonizers referred to the people they were raping and pillaging and killing all the time. Like white colonizers. It was like, savage. I'm so savage. Look at me. I'm savage. Hashtag. And I'm sorry. I'm being a total bitch now. You probably should have lunch.
No, that was the great Beavis and Butthead voice.
But the thing to me with like boxing has also been hurting itself since its inception. So that's kind of where I kind of think about it in that sense. And Dan mentioned Ben Folks and Chad Dundas, and they talked about it, and Ben has written about it, because sort of when Thriller and all these people started talking, and you talk about the freak show fights, right? And then like Ben did a very good like piece. It was a piece, I think, on The Athletic, kind of like, this is a thing since forever. Like boxing has really always capitalized on the freak show things. And boxing has always really had a history of sort of like predatory promoters and sort of like this, right? So
we expect
when I think about this, exactly, right? So it's kind of like, I don't think it hurts boxing in a way. Like it's not, I don't think it's a pop-up store that hurts boxing. On the other hand, and totally valid what you said, Nancy, about it sort of invading a space, right? And sort of trying to commodify that space in a very blatant and sort of, it's very weird. I don't have any other word to say it. When I looked at it, it was just the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my fucking life. Why would you even want to do this? It's really, when you go to a gym and you work out, the last thing you want to do is be seen. You want to look like a swamp creature and be disgusting. You don't, it's not a pretty moment for anyone if you're doing it right. But so I get all of that, but then at the same time, I'm just kind of like, that's maybe not one of boxing's most pressing issues. And again, it is one other very terrible symptom of capitalism and just how it makes shit weird for everyone. I don't know. The branding thing, it's really something that escapes me in a very fundamental level.
And this shows you how, someone who, I like style, I like fashion. If I got an invite to that, I might go, so I'm like, I hate this.
Please go and write.
Yeah, please.
Report back, Nancy. We need it.
I'm a terrible person. So, but I
would be so curious.
I would do it in a heartbeat. Like, it's weird.
And that's the thing. It's weird. I think that's what they're going for. We're talking about this weird thing that they're doing.
Yeah. It's very weird. And that's why we're talking about it. And I'm curious. I would love to see pictures from the event. I haven't found any, which makes me still think this was fake. But
I'm still in that camp. I need to see it to believe. That's why, Nancy, you need to go undercover and report back.
I'm going to, I'm going to contact Hermes and see if we can get all of us invited to the next pop-up. And then we'll go from there. So we can do some undercover work. All right. We are at counting down to the end of the show. And I feel like this is a great time to bring up Britney Spears. And I just want to talk about like my relationship with Britney, because I don't know her, obviously, but like,
I thought we were about to get a really cool story about how your best friend.
I know, I was excited. She got into a cage fight with Nancy back in the day.
Oh my gosh. Yes, no.
Well, my brother, Kevin
I think Britney can hold
Federline.
have absolutely no connection to Britney Spears. Just the
Okay, fan.
I can find the connection for you, Nancy. Go ahead. Keep going. Keep going. I'll find it.
But when I'll never forget, like when she came up, I think I'm about, God, how old is she now? Is she 30? Okay, so I'm like,
no, she's older than me. I'm
40,
32. She's like 39,
41.
40. She turned 40.
Yeah, she's like 40, 41. Yeah.
I'm 5
40,
years
41,
older than
yeah.
her.
I'd like to say she's older than me, but I think she's younger than me.
Yeah. So she's someone. Yeah.
As the reporter that I am, I'll research it on Google. There's very hard information to find that is Britney's age. Please continue.
Pop in when you get that information.
She's got to be.
She's 39.
Yeah, I was saying she has to be late 30s.
Oh, she is younger than
I
me.
Did It Again came out when I was in kindergarten.
Oh my God, I don't want to hear this. I love it.
That's very young. We don't like that.
Just enjoy the youth.
That's too much youth.
It's Britney.
That's why he's out, you guys. He's living it. Keep doing that. So, okay. Britney Spears, the conceptual self, I'm 5 years older. So I remember I was a little old when she came out with the Hit Me Baby One More Time, but I was still captivated by her because everyone was watching her. And then there was the meltdown, Britney. And I remember watching that, and I'll be honest, I kind of was like, I went with the tabloids. It was watching a spectacle, watching the train wreck. And I kind of thought like, well, she got through that, and I thought she lived a good life. She's got her stuff going on in Vegas. What do you call those when you're in-house? You got residency. Thank you. And I always thought, well, God, what a dream of a life she has. Turns out, no, in that the last 13 years, she has this conservatorship, which is crazy because this is a person who's making music, choreographing these residencies, doing runs that are months long, performing like, how many, 5 days a week, something like that. And yet she has no control over any of these assets. And for me, the one thing I think about, like in terms of gender with this, is Robert Downey Jr., who at some point, I think earlier, was someone who had a big narcotic addiction, was incarcerated, broke into someone's house and like went into their child's bed. And he is able to be part of the Marvel franchise and be a producer, and never had to be contained like this. So for me, I think about the gender just in terms of women in MMA and boxing, as well as thinking about, when you have this control, when you have a fighter contract, what that means, and can we get more power to fighters? So that's why I found a good link with Britney, I believe.
I like it. I really like that connection. You guys go.
And Fernanda, can I start with you, because you seem to connect with Britney, or you found some.
I don't.
My conclusion.
I don't.
That'd be weird if you did that in a weird way.
Dan like pulls up like his album.
Whatever.
I was more of a Christina Aguilera guy anyway.
Oh my God, me too. I was totally a Christina girl.
Absolutely. Okay. Look, Christina has massive rage.
Oh my God. I was a Jessica Simpson girl too. But keep going. Like I was Team Jessica in a lot of ways. But go ahead.
She's been vindicated though.
I was in a lot of ways.
Her book was heartbreaking, honestly, and I haven't even read it. I just listened to people talking about it.
But isn't that the case with all of them, right?
Yes.
Like and to me, I'm fascinated by Anna Nicole Smith. Like I'm
Yes.
fascinated by her story. I'm fascinated by
yes.
everything that happened in her life, because she was a person, her thing, I think, was a little before my time, in the sense that I was a little young to comprehend the whole thing, especially when she married her husband, who was obviously much older in the whole thing. And that's when she became much maligned. But, you know, and then you revisit those stories, all of them. All of those women, Mariah, who is my personal Lord and Savior, Mariah Carey. I am a lamb, proudly.
Yes.
She also had that moment of her being completely destroyed and treated as a completely unhinged person and just completely tossed aside, especially like after Glitter. And often it comes after commercial failure, right? And the same thing with Nicole, and the same thing with Britney, and you just keep seeing these things over and over again. And it's the
like
same
Gina and
Ronda.
Gina Carano, Ronda Rousey. I'm sorry, Fernanda, I totally interrupted you. I was trying to make the connection there. Go ahead, keep going.
It is a connection, and it's kind of like, and then you kind of look back on all of it and you see, because that's exactly what you did, right? You read the biography and you kind of revisit a lot of things. And I think with Britney, it was just this wide reckoning of everybody with their behaviors. And I can use the excuse that I was young and a teenager when all of that came out, but I ate it all up too. I was like, and I was on Amy Winehouse's death.com betting on when she was going to die, because that's what we were doing. Right. So like, what's in common with all of these people? And not to say that men don't get, obviously, their lives put in microscopes and have all these pressures, and albeit different pressures, obviously they do, and have their whole lives commodified to an extent that we don't recognize them as people anymore. Right. And that's really what happened with Britney. And come to think of it, like the 2005 and so whatever, like around that era, it was horrible for the treatment of women in the media. And it wasn't that long ago. It was like yesterday. So it's kind of like when people say, why are you a feminist? We're all great. You're equal. It's like literally yesterday, you guys were doing that shit to Britney, and you still are, because she just got out of a conservatorship today.
And here's what the difference. I'm so sorry, Fernanda. Keep going.
No, that's kind of like what. So when you look at it, the common thread, it's a common thread to all of them, of course. And I guess when we're talking about the link, money is the devil, and it makes everybody fucking assholes. No, not not a satisfying enough link. And we can always go back to the commodification when we talk about fighters, obviously, and a big part of why I think a lot of us are detached from their struggles. And I think that's changing. I think it's gotten a lot better, and Julie's going to be able to speak on that, obviously, with a lot more experience and insight than I can. But I think it also comes back to a little bit of just, we accept certain things being done to people that we don't necessarily relate to or understand as people. And I think in martial arts, that has a whole, and I've written about it a lot, and I still can't really explain that, but I think we kind of need a certain level of that to even appreciate combat sports. Because if we're just seeing fellow humans and seeing ourselves getting really injured and hurt and put in those really difficult situations, it's hard to watch. So it takes some detachment to even be a fan. But I do think that a lot of it, and a lot of just accepting those virtually unacceptable situations, comes from us maybe not seeing them more as merchandise or objects of entertainment than as actual real life humans.
No, that just fucking blew my mind, because I had a whole spiel I was going to do, and you just blew my mind. That was beautiful. Like, fucking props. I want to rewind that and watch that over and over again, because that was like, you said exactly sort of what I wanted to say. And I would just add in the gender part of this, and I know it's not just gender. I think that there's race and sex and orientation and all these other things that go into this, but just from a gender perspective, I can talk about Joe Rogan and critique him and still say, yeah, I think I know him, the man. I know him, the man, from like 3 hours I spent, talking to him when he may or may not have been performing and putting on a mask for me in a podcast, and really liked that person despite disagreeing with everything they said, really liked that person, and have this bizarre desire to defend that person, even when they're being a total shithead and destroying the world. but I don't think that same thing can apply to a Britney or an Amy Winehouse or a Jessica Simpson or any of these other people who were totally maligned, or Anna Nicole Smith, because their brands were not their brands. They weren't in control of them, and he is in control of his. They weren't in control of their brands. They had no control over the things that were happening to them because of sexism, because of this patriarchal, like capitalist thing imposed on them. They had no control over the things that were being. I believed 100% that Britney Spears shaved her head so she could avoid a drug test. And she fucking hated those paparazzi. I was cheering her on then. That was my favorite moment of Britney Spears. Again, being a Jessica Simpson person, because I was like, I'm totally the kind of person who would say on camera, oh, chicken tunas of the sea. Like, I totally understand that faux pas, because I would totally be that person.
Yeah.
And I'm fucking smart. I am. I swear. You're I got into good schools. Like I did. But I would have that moment. That's me. Like I identify. But Britney attacking the camera people with an umbrella after shaving her head, that's the moment I identify with her being like, I have to pass this drug test, but also fuck you. I'm gonna do this. Make sure I've covered my bases, and I'm gonna fuck you up. I loved that. That was my favorite Britney moment, and it sucks that maybe she was mentally cracking at that moment, because and that's what I saw as her strongest moment.
But I feel like that was her moment of like rehumanizing herself. I feel like in society we're very much taught to like love watching the tortured artist and the act of them going through struggles and strife and being torn down. And that was just kind of her moment of, I'm no longer putting on a show for you guys. I'm not in control of anything that's going on in my life right now, but I can take control of this moment. And it's an extremely relatable thing. To me, it's like, it's the equivalent of Vincent van Gogh cutting off his ear. Yes. He just could not take it anymore, and had to remind himself and everyone around him that he's a human being, and that Britney is a human being with thoughts and feelings and emotions, and is not someone who's there to just be put on display for your entertainment. They are a person, and whether they're a celebrity or not, regardless of how much money is being made off their albums or how much their label is sucking their soul dry, they need help too. And that wasn't even just her crying out moment for help. It was, she had spent so long crying out for help where no one could hear it because it was all on her album and it was all being monetized, that moment of realness and that moment of humanity is what makes you love her even more, because it reminds you that regardless of like her status in the world or her celebrity, she's a person, and it makes her relatable. It's what made Amy Winehouse relatable. It's what made Anna Nicole Smith relatable. And sometimes you just want to be heard with your own voice and not through whatever filter that the people that are controlling your life are putting it through for their own entertainment and for the monetization of your soul.
Ethan, I think that's such great insight, and I agree. However, but I believe that them being relatable, them fighting back, that cost them. Britney, for me, it's also, I know that was when she didn't want to take a drug test, or who knows, I don't want to allegedly, she was a mother. And that's the thing that, she just wanted to, I think, custody of her kids, and the whole thing was going on. And so her striking out and doing something different, she got pushed back, you should be subordinate and dad will take care of you. It's interesting because Amy Winehouse, I feel that that's kind of what people use as the case for why a Britney conservatorship should have happened. Like, we should have given a conservatorship to Amy Winehouse. She'd still be alive.
Should have given her a therapist.
100%.
Exactly right.
That was really flippant.
Like, no. As someone with a master's in psychology, a therapist would have helped.
Would have helped completely. But I do think you're right. And that's,
or just like treated them like a full person would have been a good start. Because a lot of the Britney conversation, and I'm really sorry to interrupt, Nancy, but like it's about, a lot of people use like, oh, because she's probably bipolar. Like that's their excuse, right? Like, oh, but she's bipolar. Dude, and this is so ableist and horrible because it's kind of like, dude, bipolar people live their lives like the rest of neurotypical non-bipolar people do. What you do with a bipolar person, you find them the correct medication and the right counseling, and then they get to keep their children. Because being bipolar doesn't justify having your children taken away from you.
No.
And I think Nancy really brought it home, because the fact that she was a mom was weaponized against her so much.
And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with this obsession with branding that we seem to have, of her humanity and what she needed as a person would have been seen as hurting her brand by the people that were running her conservatorship. So she was denied her humanity and her human needs for the sake of what they thought was representing and protecting her brand, which was really just protecting their stream of income and completely disregarding her humanity.
Amen.
And completely, because if they were really after her humanity, a conservatorship would have said, go to college or get some therapy and growth, and you be independent so you don't need us. And that was never given to her, it seems. And it's almost like, it's sad to see that being the Britney spectacle, almost infantizing in a way.
No, you're totally right. You're totally right.
Infantilization.
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you,
No,
Nancy.
please.
I would just say it can happen even when you're in your 30s. It can happen even when you're in your 40s. That whole thing, somebody can take control of your entire life without you knowing it, and control your actions, control the way you present yourself. This is years and years of therapy speaking from experience, and you don't even know it until you're a shell of yourself, and you're like, what did I just give up? And when I walked away from something, like, did I just give myself up?
Yeah.
Because I tried to be like strike for independence. Like, that shit is, and it's such a, I want to say it's such a privileged problem, but it isn't, because the people who get targeted for this kind of thing are the people who are actually very strong and maybe in the most minoritized positions. Not always, but the ones who just look the strongest, because that's what we do, right? Like, it's what like privileged people do. They impose this, like, and which I think it all goes back to the whole Hermes. I can't say it right. I don't speak French.
I love that none of us know how to say
Hermes. Yeah, something from the Devil Wears Prada, something like. But it's the same thing. It's the Dana White effect. It's the Hermes effect. It's whatever it is to control that small thing and make it think that you are a part of their universe. You have to do it this way. You have to progress this way. This is Julie Apophenia moment. My MMA Apophenia. I said I wanted to put this in there because I was like, Nancy, I see the connections between art and all these other fucking things where they're probably not, they don't exist, but I don't care. And I don't care the stupid Netflix chess show with the good eyeliner, the chess one where they all had good eyeliner.
Gambit?
Like, use it. Yes, that's it. And I always forget the name of it because I heard about Apophenia before that and I was so excited to write this big essay about it. And then they took the good eyeliner, and I feel like I can't do either. But it's just like this idea of these connections between things that may or may not be there. That's where I was like, we can do this in this show, in fight writing. We can make these connections. That's what freshman writers are supposed to do. And so I do it because that's how Julie Without Meds does it.
I think this is such
I love being with you intellectuals. It's like, we're just going with it. I love it.
But it's true though. Like, that's what they do. It's like the bigger people
barely have a degree.
Like, bullshit! You're the one of the smartest people I know.
Pontification doesn't really mean that are we bringing evidence? Are we
Doesn't
bringing?
matter. Fuck it.
Am I citing
Exactly.
psychologists right now? I have Ethan, so like I'm using him as my.
Honestly, I feel like I
buffer.
quote the Matrix more than I quote anything I learned in psychology, and it usually applies in the same fashion.
Yeah, except
if you quote Keanu Reeves, if you just quote Keanu Reeves, you can't really go wrong.
Yeah.
You're right. I agree. But then how do you feel this relates to Christina Aguilera though? Like that.
I was just kidding. I wasn't a Christina fan, but I couldn't admit that I'm actually a Jessica Simpson fan.
That's what I'm saying. There would have been nothing wrong with that from what I gathered from knowing you for these years. I was like, I don't think Dan is a Britney person. Britney and Mariah person, maybe, but Britney, I never got that vibe from you.
Yeah, but you know what it is, Dan. I'm gonna put words in your. I'm taking over your. Oh my God, my Mac's gonna fall asleep. I was gonna say. I'm going to take it over and I'm going to say they pitted them all against each other, didn't they? These women, these white women, all against each other.
Yeah.
And they were young. They were little teenage girls, and they pitted them against each other with their little Mickey Mouse ears. Julie has had 2 glasses of wine. Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
I love it.
I think of the simpler times when it was just NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and everything was happy. Yeah.
Just boy band singing about heartbreak.
Someone has to be 98 degrees and be left out in the corner.
Oh shit.
Oh my God.
It gets messy. When Nick Lachey appears, we've all seen Love is Blind, maybe only me. If you haven't, you should. When Nick Lachey appears, shit gets messy. That's all I'm
Oh my
saying.
God, in Jessica Simpson's book, when he comes over after she breaks up with him and he plays her the music he wrote, and she's so embarrassed by it. She's just like, she sleeps with him, so he goes away. Sorry. That's like, I relate 100% to that. Who am I?
That's such a relatable thing.
Wow.
If I had a
this
nickel.
is terrible. I'll just fuck you till you leave.
All I heard was some guy got to have sex with Jessica Simpson in that story. So
Nick
Oh my God.
Lachey did. If you don't know it, on Love is Blind, he introduced
Ay, ay,
himself.
ay.
He's a host. He appears for like 2 minutes, but he introduces himself. I am obviously Nick Lachey.
Oh my God.
And that's aspirational, because I hope that one day in my life I can introduce myself. Nancy invites me on a panel and I don't have to say anything else. I'll just say I am obviously.
I've actually
On the
met
Prates.
Nick Lachey like 4 or 5 times.
Oh,
When I worked for the Reds, he was a big
He's
a big Cincinnati guy.
He's like
so
the
like
blandest human being
wow.
at
alive.
least twice a year he'd be at a Reds game, like batting practice or throwing out first pitches, and we'd always do stories for Reds.com. Like it got to the point, it's like I have nothing left to talk to Nick Lachey about. Like we can't keep doing stories on this guy. Like, I was sick of Nick
You
Lachey.
should have went and got some Skyline chili, you know?
Yeah, I know exactly.
Oh my God.
I've known you for how many years, Dan? And this is the first time I hear about your Nick Lachey
I met Tom Hanks
friendship,
at a Reds game.
connection.
Oh, Tom Hanks.
He was
At
there
least
with
he's
Tom
interesting.
Hanks, yeah.
who's the Ron Howard.
It's David
and,
S. Pumpkins. So.
Yeah, they were touring ballpark.
David S. Pumpkins.
Any questions? I love that
Greatest
you
Saturday
forgot
Night
my
Live
reference,
skit
'cause
ever.
otherwise I would have been just dead in the water with this one.
I'm a huge SNL nerd. Don't worry. I got the whole
Okay.
reference.
But yeah, Dan, I feel like you've been holding out on us, and we need a whole nother show just
I
Dan talking
know.
about his connections with.
Let's
I was going to
please
say,
do
you
that.
now know everything there is to know about Nick Lachey.
Yeah.
There's not much to talk
There's
about.
not much else.
But you met the blandest man alive.
Right. And he didn't even have Jessica Simpson with him, so what's the point?
Okay. I was hoping we would get to Nick Lachey in this whole conversation. It's already a
Mission accomplished.
mission accomplished.
Delivery
Next time, will we need to unpack how boy bands in combat sports next? I don't know.
That we can do. That we can most definitely do.
All right. We got
That's
that. I'm going. So I'm obviously Nancy Kidder. Nancy Kidder. And you can find more of these videos, the epilogue, which were, Julie, this is number 3. I know it's like we were going to just do this every week. And this is, we're about 2 months in.
Hey, it's tough.
Hey, we're through the grading, the midterms. But you can go to writeandfight.com and Writing and Fighting on YouTube. And then we are having a podcast coming out soon.
Yeah, we're gonna release it. It's gonna be great.
Yes.
And we're gonna do it in tiers and all these other things that I can remember when I haven't had 2 glasses of wine.
I love it.
Which is sad because it used to be like a bottle of wine and I keep
Oh,
going, but now I'm like, oh,
Lightweight.
The good old days.
I know, I'm so old.
So I'm gonna go around and like Ethan, what's going on at Lost and Found? Have you had to bounce anyone? Any?
No, everyone has been pretty tame. I think after daylight savings time and they got an extra hour of getting to be out and be drunk at the bars, they finally had enough. So it's slowed
now
down.
they're
It's
resting.
slowed down a bit, But I say that now, it's still only 8:15. Check back in about 3 hours, and I will probably be somewhere in the weeds.
You'll have to tell us. We'll have to hear next time. Can you?
Don't worry. I have plenty of bouncer fighter stories from over the years that I can share.
Oh yes.
I'd love that. So
Here for
Ethan,
those.
where can people find you, or what projects are you doing?
People can find me mainly on Instagram. My Instagram is blue_Kong, BLU_Kong. Currently working on some mindfulness research and trying to figure out how I can apply that to the mindset of fighters, and that being built off of different fight styles. Or you can catch me anytime that there is a UFC fight on, especially if Israel Adesanya is on the card.
Excellent. So great to have you join us, Ethan.
Thank you for inviting me.
Dan, where can people find you? And
Here in my office in Lexington, Virginia, most days with my dog. No, I'm on Twitter, Dan Stupp, DANNSTUPP. I still have a foot somewhat in MMA, but don't do a whole lot of it. So I just kind of get to be a fan these days, which is pretty nice.
Great. And you also, what gambling sites do you write content for?
PlayVirginia.com, PlayMaryland.com, and now PlayFlorida.com. So you can probably sense a theme here. So
I love it. And then how's the house coming? Because I remember, are we getting further along?
We just drove by right before this thing, and the tubs are still sitting in the half-finished driveway, and we're getting there. I'm sure we will be there before I retire. So
Lexington, Virginia, south. Things run a little slower, but
yeah. Well, with the pandemic, like just the supply chain stuff, like they've been waiting on so many random little things that. Well. I still got a roof over my head. Can't complain.
Thank you. And, that'll be a topic for next time, how the supply chain affects combat sports. Who knows where that'll go. Nanda, tell us where we can find you and your hot Instagram, please.
Super hot.
Please let's set expectations a little lower. If you're gonna go into
that
my
booty,
Instagram.
guys, that booty.
It is free content, so it's like you can't complain. You can't complain anymore. I'm not charging anybody for it. You can just leave whatever you want. Now I'm on Instagram posting a lot of existential memes to my stories all day, if that's your kind of thing.
Yeah, your stories are great.
It's just memes and my face. So it's kind of like, if you like that, you like that. But I'm there at Nanda Prates, obviously Nanda Prates, NANDAPRATES. And I'm on Twitter, same thing, except with an underscore at the end. And on Fanbyte, if you want to read my stuff. And I host co-host a movies podcast called You Love to See It. That is also hosted on Fanbyte, where you can get more of this gold. Of this gold that you just got for free every week. And thank you so much for having me, Nancy. I'm sorry I kidnapped it. I love you all. Thank you so much for having me.
I adore you. And what is is the episode with Lionheart, Jean-Claude Van Damme, is that up? Can we
Yes. Yep. We're on all the podcast things, Spotify, Apple. Spotify hasn't yet offered me millions of dollars to interview right-wingers and talk misinformation, but
fuck the patriarchy.
But I'm still there. You can find me everywhere. And this is actually this week's episode, Lionhearts. We did Striptease the week before, which is also an amazing malign movie that you should watch. It's the Jessica Simpson of movies, I would say.
That's a beautiful metaphor.
Julie, why don't you tell people where they can find you, and then can you tell?
I blocked people from finding me because I blocked. I put, if you're not already following me on Twitter, I have to approve you, just because I was really sick of ex-fighters and their boyfriends coming after me and creating fake accounts. But that was a reveal.
C, the T,
and C.
You're possible.
Yeah, little MAGA bitches and your little Nazi boyfriends. I see you. I see you. I see what you do. But seriously, I did put a block on my Twitter, so I have to approve you, and I never look at the people I have to approve. So sorry, it might take a while. But my Instagram is at JulesK_fighter, which is the same as my Twitter. But mostly I don't want people to find me except for Nancy's podcast. because I'm trying to keep my job at the university and like pretend I'm nobody and like I'm just a really happy-go-lucky creative writing person. But yeah, someday my book will come out. Find me through Nancy right now.
Yes.
And the podcast, because I love this and I love to talk shit. I just want to keep it within the people within my echo chamber, as they accuse me of.
I love you all. I love you guys. Thank you. All right. Have a good one. And thank you guys so much.
Thank
Mwah.
you, guys.